What's up, all my 40K fanatics out there? It's DJ here with Tim's Nation, and hopefully you all are enjoying your Friday morning. I'm enjoying the nicer weather. It's been kind of tough out here in Cleveland, considering I say a lot. We're waiting for the weather to break, and those who live in Cleveland know the saying is April showers bring May showers, bring June blizzards. That's what happens when you live in Cleveland, though. The weather is very, very crazy out here. But the crazier is the Necrons. We got a teaser today, or a spoiler, for what we were looking at for Necrons in 10th edition. And I had to give a quick hot take on my opinion, being a diehard Necron fan competitively and looking at what we're seeing. There was a couple of takeaways. I'm going to go with the one that I didn't like so much first, and one that makes me kind of sad and disappointed. And then go into some of the cooler stuff that is a little bit, that I'm glad to see. So, the longer talking point of this video, and the negative, Reanimation Protocol. So, anyone who has played Necrons for years knows, back in 6th and 7th edition, I do believe, this is how Reanimation Protocol functioned. You'd go through your turn, both players' turn sequences, and then Reanimation Protocol would go at the beginning of your turn, which now we have the command phase. In the previous editions, you would roll a die for every model the unit had lost. Now, instead, we're getting D3 healed wounds back and more for Necron warriors, but initially it's D3 is the pivot point for where this ability goes, and it happens in your command phase. And personally, I'm not happy with this. I don't like this at all. The issue is that it's going to be the issue I see, and the issue that happened prior, was that although there might be some cool abilities and stacking effects and stuff like that, your opponent controls whether you're going to have reanimation protocols. If you do not, if they don't shoot at or attack or engage a unit, then there's no one dies, therefore you have no one to reanimate. I think that a lot of opponents are going to be able to control the board and control that decision on when or if you get to reanimate. At that same time, too, it's only D3, so they don't necessarily need to completely clear you out. They can just hurt you enough that the D3 that you get, or the D6 you get for Necron Warriors, isn't enough to sway what that unit can do. On top of that, the fact that your opponent is going to be able to shoot with all their guns, all their weapons, and everything in an attempt to remove that unit before it gets to reanimations. I think this is just going to put too much control in the opponent's hands on what you do and don't get back. But until we see more in the book, I could be wrong, but it just seems like it's very, very, very simplified. And in like Games Workshop said, it was a more simplified rule, but not necessarily probably in the way that was more efficient. Just because I do know how this went with 6th and 7th. Yes, toning down the killing of the game. I hear you there. But it's only D3 guys, and you don't have to wait to your command phase. Your opponent can really dictate that. Not to mention, it kind of seems like this is a little bit of a weakness when we look at combat. Because if I go into in charge and do in combat and lose models in combat, you have now a leg up on trying to remove that unit before I get to do any reanimations. So hopefully there's more to be seen with like the barge, the reanimator. I'm really hoping the reanimator has some play into this, maybe to be able to add additional guys into there. And that's the biggest part that I'm looking at, is what we're looking at for the other units in there. What are they going to contribute to Reanimation Protocol? This is the core rule that we see and how it functions. Is there going to be things that are going to modify it and buff it? I'm hopeful, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Now, That doesn't mean I'm totally down on all of the things we've seen. First of all, the monolith looks great. And anyone who's followed me for a while knows the one thing that I'm super excited about, the monolith finally has fly. It can be used. It can float across the table. It's not going to be blocked by all the terrain. Oh, I'm so happy. They finally gave it fly. That was the very first thing I looked at when I saw the monolith. I went down and so it's like, did they give it fly? Did they give it? Yes, they did. The monolith's inherent ability to pull a unit through, I think, is going to be great. I actually think the monolith may have a lot of play now, where you can use the monolith to cover an entire flank, and if your opponent gets close, you can bring more units through to be able to shoot, not charge that turn, but shoot and hold down that objective. And if your opponent doesn't go near it, then, well, you don't have to dedicate extra units and infantry over there, as the monolith itself is objective controlled like 8. So that's nice. Seeing the Doomsday cannon profile on the Doomsday arc makes me happy. So if you sit still, you get the devastating wound profile. But as it says, like, that's only if you sit still. If you don't, you still have that gun profile on the move. So that means that Doomstalker, who has the exact same identical gun, that might be the exact same way he goes, and we might see the Doomstalker on the table, especially with these vehicles. If that's the gun, and that's going to be on the Doomstalker, cool. That already looks like he might be playable, and I'm happy to see that. Because I have 3 of them, and they're just sitting on a shelf primed, and I just need a reason to paint them. So I'm looking forward to that. I feel like the Doomstalker now, and that's okay. So reanimation protocols got weaker, infantry got weaker, but now we're looking at an era of some vehicles being better. Well, Necron vehicles haven't had a chance to really see the table because of some of their weaknesses. Now the vehicles may be seeing their time. I'm cool with that because I have a lot of those vehicles, and I'm just waiting for them to have a reason to hit the table. Last, but certainly not least, command protocol. So command protocol now gives +1 to hit. That's my will be done. So what's my will be done going to give, if it's even around anymore? And because of the fact that my will be done was something that was locked to kind of the overlords in the Silent King to give, and the Catacomb Command Barge to give +1 to hit, and now it's command protocol, oh, my mind is just swirling on wanting to see those characters and what we're looking at. So I'm very excited to see what the characters look like in the future. I think that a lot's going to be basis on what those characters could do, and I'm hopeful on that. Little sour on the reanimation protocol. I think that that's bunk, and I don't think that's going to be as effective with the Necron army as some of us would like to see. But there is other factors and other things that we haven't seen yet. Some of the stratagems, the Canoptic Reanimator, the Ghost Arc, and at that same time, too, the Ghost Arc typically has only had a transport capacity 10. They might up it a little bit so you can get characters in there with those guys. That'd be nice, especially seeing some of the other ones like the Land Raider get a little bit of a boost. Land Raider went to capacity 12, where it's been traditionally a 10. So hopefully maybe they'll bump that up from 10 to 12 so we can get the characters in it as well. But with the reanimation protocol only being D3 or D6 or D3 plus 3, depending on the scenario of the game, I feel like we might see 10-man Necron warriors in Ghost Arcs. Just because now they're smaller, so it's a smaller unit. So if your opponent doesn't wipe them, you have a really good chance at bringing them back to full strength. And on top of that, Ghost Arcs in the past were open-top vehicles you could shoot out of. I'm still hopeful, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that Ghost Arc is going to have firing deck at least 10, and the warriors will be able to shoot out, and the Ghost Arc is going to be a mean infantry killing gunboat. So that's my hot take on it. I had to do something. I saw it this morning. I couldn't just stay silent all night because I knew that as the day went on, I would see a lot of information. I was like, man. And there's a couple of Necron players that I know that watch and listen, and I'm curious on your guys' opinion on everything. Please subscribe to the channel, like, share, comment down below, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Thanks for listening.